Hi and welcome. If this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Kayla Kincannon. I'm an ADHD parent coach and master herbalist. What I do is strengthen relationships between parents and their ADHD children by teaching them both to accept their children exactly as they are rather than try to change them with all the rather than try to change them at all, right? We accept them exactly the way they are. And today I wanted to kind of talk about some of in the past, my most dreaded kind of time of year. I'm going to be very honest with you. This whole back to school thing is not my favorite time, or used to not be actually. Summer, of course, has its own challenges, but back to school requires such a lot of self-coaching, or used to for me. Just seeing school supplies sometimes in the store, it sends my brain kind of spinning. There's just this sort of dread there, right? So like I'm going over questions in my head, what kinds of teachers will he have this year? What if the classwork is too much and he starts having meltdowns again? What if there's that one teacher, that moved to his grade, the one that doesn't believe that ADHD is a thing and it's something you can just kind of punish out of your kid. And this year is especially worrying for me. My son's entering middle school, right? And it's such an awkward time for all kids. They're uncomfortable. It's that transition, from being the little kid to the teenager. Plus they've got all the hormone changes that come along with this age. And then with a kid with ADHD and their underdeveloped executive functions, their type of nervous system can make things even more awkward. And then while all of this is going on in my brain, I'm also planning to have a meeting next week with my son's teachers I do this at the beginning of every school year, just to kind of, discipline plan certain accommodations that he needs. And then that kind of sparks some anxiety in my head too, is how am I supposed to explain the best way to manage my son's unique way of processing the world within a system that doesn't even allow for what he needs? It feels sort of impossible. So what I tend to focus on in those meetings at home with my son and in general is communication. And one of the biggest parts of communication for me was learning how to listen properly, right? The trust that my son and I have built over my years of work and his years of work as well is that he's very, very transparent with me about everything that goes on in school. He'll come home and tell me the good things, and he also tells me the bad things. And on the surface, it would seem like this is the complete solution, right? We're not, he comes home, he tells me what's going on, I'm prepared for what to expect the next day, or if we're getting phone calls from teachers, and he's willing to share every part of his day with me, so there's no really surprises. But what happens so often is that when he's the one telling me what's going on, I'm really only getting one part of the story, right? And so it used to be this, who's lying and who's not, who's telling the truth. And so this is kind of what the easy answer is no, he is absolutely not lying. He is telling me the truth about what happened during the day through his eyes. But this is kind of how it plays out. He comes home and he tells me, oh, I had a little rough patch at school, something happened during the day, but everything worked out, so we're all good now, right? And sometimes that's true. Sometimes, though, it wasn't true, right? Things aren't all good. And so the next day or that evening, he'll come home, I'll get a phone call from a teacher, he'll come home with punish work or has detention. Or even at one point, getting these, I'm having to go to a meeting at school for these serious repeated behavioral issues. And these situations used to frustrate me so much. Excuse me just a second. Because again, I immediately go, well, he's lying to me. The people in authority, the teachers are telling me one version of events and he's telling me another. But he was so adamant that his version was true. So we would end up arguing all the time, and he would insist that he was telling me the truth. And then it became, the whole world is against him, or they're just making up stuff. And so the end result was that at least one of us would be in tears. He would end up punished. I would feel so guilty. And then it would repeat all over again, right? But that goes back to what I've learned through my own personal coaching journey, is learning to listen. See, I learned the truth about truth, if that makes sense to you. He's telling me the truth. He's telling me the truth from his own unique experience. All of us, each individual on the planet Earth, sees things and experiences the world through a filter. That filter was developed over time throughout our life by our own personal and unique experiences, expectations, and emotions. So no two people will see the same situation the same. So from his perspective, he was telling me the exact truth. And from his teacher's perspective, they were also telling me the exact truth. So when they weren't necessarily meshing, that need that I felt to try to pick out, okay, I'm caught in the middle, who's telling the truth and who's lying, and are they targeting him? That kind of went away, because I learned to say, oh, okay, so this is his version of the truth and that's their version of the truth. And so instead of me having to pick sides between, okay, am I going to believe my son or am I going to believe the teacher and what are we going to do and how is this going to work? I just assume going in now, both that they're telling me the truth. Both of them are telling me the truth. And so how this plays out in terms of managing his behavior and communicating with his teachers, again, when I'm not feeling pulled, when I don't have to choose sides, when I'm not saying, okay, one person's lying and one person's telling me the truth, and I can listen objectively to what they're both saying, then I can explain one person to the other and that person back to him. So I can tell the teachers, like, look, I understand there's a rule, that he broke. From his perspective, this is what happened. And then be able to say, look, he thinks this because of this. Then I be quiet and they can tell me, okay, that's great. But when he did this, this is what I saw. It's like, all right, so I see your side. So when I'm going back and I'm having a conversation with my son, I can say, look, your teacher didn't understand, or from her perspective, this has been happening repeatedly. I know you don't think it was a big deal, but to her, it was a big deal. So we can have these conversations in a very calm, neutral way. And I can give him an opportunity to explain his side, but then he gets to have an opportunity to see it through her eyes too. And most often it's like, oh yeah, I can see how that would be annoying. I would be aggravated if somebody did that in my house too. And then the teacher will say the same things. Oh, I didn't realize, that this happened before said event, and then this would happen after said event, so I can see why he chose to, or he reacted the way he did. And so what ends up happening is, one, I'm not arguing with my kid anymore. There's no punishment, crying, tears, any of that. And then the teacher's getting to see the world through his eyes a little bit, which increases her compassion. And then I'm teaching my son too how to open up his mind and to see the world from different perspectives. And so he's learning that not everyone does, feels, and thinks the same way he does. And so it's opening his mind and building his compassion too. So moving forward, he chooses things differently, right? Again, not always the right thing, but when he has an opportunity to sit back and think, he's like, oh, well, maybe she reacted that way because of X, and I reacted that way because of Y. Then when we're going back and having conversations, it leads to a lot more accountability on his part. He's saying, Mom, I did this and I shouldn't have, or I pushed it too far, or I thought we were having fun, I didn't realize the time limit was up. And so by broadening his ideas of how other people see the world, he's able to calm himself down before he immediately reacts on an emotional way and starts arguing and yelling or defending himself. He's like, look, I did it. I thought it was the right thing. It's not the right thing. Okay, cool. I'll do my punished work at school, or I'll have to lecture from the teacher. And so it got rid of that defensiveness from his part, or he's in the process of, I'm telling you, it's not there yet, but it's in the process of dropping that defensiveness. And so it allows the teachers, his classmates, me, his father, even some of my family members, his grandparents and things like that, to talk to him with a much more rational understanding on his part. And so there's so much less conflict in the world. And so if you're having trouble deciding what to do and how to concentrate and how to start this year off on a good foot, that's what I would suggest that you do, is focus on how you're listening from a perspective that everyone involved is telling the truth. No one has to be right or wrong. And when you're doing that, you take your emotions out. So you're calm, then your child will be calm, your child's teacher will be calm. And at the end, you can actually come to a productive resolution where nobody feels like they're losing, right? Because that's the last thing in the world that you want to do. So I hope you can use this. Put any questions, comments below the video. I think I have some links in there. You can contact me directly that way. And today's Friday here. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye.